want to welcome everyone here. Thank you very much for coming. We feel very pleased to have you because we are one community. We live, all of us, in this society as one family, as the Quran teaches all of us. And at the same time, I want just to remark that the seats in the back are more expensive than the seats in the front, just to alert you. So when you get out, you know what to expect. Well, first of all, I would like to clarify some terms, some terminology that people use but they don't really know. Like Islamic terminology are mostly in Arabic. You hear the word Jihad, you hear the word Islam, right? You hear the words like Khilafah, right? The media is throwing a lot of words at us. And because we do not know, we end up fearing those unknown terms and those unknown people. And it's normal. People, all peoples, fear the unknown. Nobody wants to live in an unpredictable life where you fear your neighbor, you fear each other. But let me assure you one thing. Politicians and media personalities and leaders who lead by scare tactics are not leading us in a positive point. They are not taking us in a positive direction. Basically, when fire erupts anywhere, everyone is invited to be a firefighter, right? When we see an accident on the road, everyone is expected to be a paramedic. Whatever you know, you help. So when they thrust fear into our throats, they are not serving us to live as a community. So the only antidote for fear is knowledge. Let not anyone tell you who we are. We can tell you who we are and hear you, where you come from, what is your position, because we are all growing through the exchange of information. We all become better off when we know each other well, we feel secure, we feel comfortable, and this is why we have these open houses. So the purpose is really to hear you, not to lecture you. So your questions will inform our conscience, and your background will also inform our conscience to relate to you in a better way. And this is the purpose of acting like a family. The Quran teaches us, as Allah says, we have created you from a single male, a pair of a male and a female. That's Adam and Eve, not Steve, right? Adam and Eve are our fathers and mothers, right? And then Allah says, and we have made you into peoples and tribes so that you may know each other. The purpose is to get to know each other. One of the things that the Quran also teaches us is, it is amongst His signs that He created you in different colors and tongues. It's one of the signs, one of the miracles of Allah, that He creates billions of people. They are not boring creations. We are very interesting creation. So those who speak Chinese, those who speak African, those who speak European languages, those who speak other languages, we become of interest to each other. If God has created all of us males, where would we bring children? If God created us all females, so in His wisdom, He made us ذكر وأنثى, a male and a female, and He made us into peoples and tribes so that you may inquire, discover, and become richer by getting to know each other. So the purpose is not for every community to live in its cocoon and close its doors and cycles and fight anyone that's different. That's not the Islamic view. The Islamic view is that all humans come from one family, the first family, not the one in the White House, but the really first family, and then we all become their children, and we're supposed to behave like family. And this is why Islam prohibits wanton killing, killing of innocent, attacking anyone for their color, for their tongue, or exploiting anyone's color or tongue or ignorance or education. Islam wants us to live as a family. And this is the bottom line in the religion of Islam. We are all creatures of Allah, and we are supposed to submit and bow down to His Majesty and none else. Muslims and all humanity are supposed to submit to Allah's will. Let me give you some taste of submission that you may be more familiar with. Most of us know that when Jesus was about to be arrested by the Roman soldiers in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he saw the soldiers coming, he took aside, went a little further, and what did he do? He fell on his face, the Bible says. Who falls on their face when they pray? Who do this kind of weird prayers? It's Muslims, right? But we are not the generation that started this. It goes back even to the days of Adam and Noah and Abraham. All of the prophets are mentioned in the Bible that they fell on their face when they prayed. I'm not promoting prayer, but I'm saying the point here that I want to get is, what prayer did he say? Jesus is about to be arrested. He's going to be taken to be crucified, presumably, right? What prayer did he have? He says, "O righteous Father, if you may take this cup away from me, nevertheless, not my will be done, but your will be done." Not my will be done, your will be done. He is deferring to the will of God. This is what submission is about. When God told Abraham to destroy the idols, and Abraham knew what's going to happen to him, the community were going to tear him apart. He didn't say, "What if?" He submitted to the will of God. When God told him, "Slaughter your son," he didn't say, "What if?" or "What about?" He prepared everything to slay the son, and God had prepared a replacement of a ram as a ransom. We all know the stories, right? When God told Moses and Aaron, "Go to Pharaoh," they didn't hesitate. They just submitted a realistic complaint saying, "God, this guy is reckless. He is going to kill us," which means your message is not going to get there. So he says, "Do not fear, I am with you. I hear and I see." They got the message and they went, daring Pharaoh, who claimed to be God, and they submitted to God. So submission is at the essence of what Islam is about. If we all submit to one and the same God, if we all accept the guidance of God that we see permeating all of the books and scriptures that we all refer to, we can agree to much more than we think we do, just by studying each other's book. We agree to so many things that we could do together for this society. Our society is struggling against drugs, alcoholism, teenage pregnancy, children out of wedlock, suicide, depression. There's a lot that we can do together to improve our society and put aside our differences. The Quran says, "Invite unto the path of your Lord everybody. And those who turn away, ask them, just bear witness that we are surrendering to God. We are Muslims." Muslim is the one who surrenders to God. That's all what it is. And then the Quran also tells us that Allah will be the judge amongst all of us on the day of judgment. Who was right and who was wrong? We are here for the test, but we'll only see the results when we get there. Why do we hasten the results? Why do we hasten the demise of each other? There is no point, because the wealth that we have, even in the way we believe or not believe in God, is intentionally made. Allah created us free people to have free choices. Our spirit cannot accept suppression or oppression. That's a human spirit. Allah created us free people. And that's why in Islam, the Quran says it very clearly, "Let there be no compulsion in religion." Do not force anyone, do not even tempt anyone to falsely believe in something they don't want to believe in. Let them have a free choice, and let everybody go to God as a free agent on his own behalf. This is the spirit of Islam. The problem is when we conflate politics and religion. And I don't mean that Islam believes in secularism. Islam believes that God's guidance should permeate every aspect of our life, so that we don't get a congressman who stashes $96,000 in the freezer. Nobody who could relate to God could do this because he knows that God is watching. But because he is only observing the law, there is so many policemen to be after everybody, right? You cannot watch everybody, could you? Are you catching all people who do violations? No, you're not. So what I'm saying is, the centerpiece in Islam is to submit our conscience to Allah. Even our children, we would love for our children to be obedient to us. How about being obedient to God? How about being conscientious people? How about being merciful people? How about being successful both in their faith and in their life? So this is briefly the overall picture that I could share with you in few minutes, but we are more interested in your comments, your guidance, your suggestions, your questions, whatever you want to share with us. We welcome your comments and questions, inshallah. So the floor is yours. Anybody could jump in.
Yes, thank you. And please, there's no wrong question, or we're all civil here, but we really want to engage.
But even if you ask wrong question, I will correct it. Don't worry about it.
So, yes.
The national climate is obviously one that is not welcoming to a lot of people. What can the community in Fairfax County do to counter that?
To push against fear-mongering, divisiveness, tribalism, and bigotry. Just push back any way you can, any way you want, because those elements can divide the most cohesive community. Remember, one day all Christians followed one church, right? Then people started to fear they may not be saved with that kind of church, or their life may not be advanced with that church. So people started to divide around smaller groups, right? Then we got denominations and so on and so forth. We know the history. Get any cohesive group in any place and just push some fear into their hearts, they will be divided very quickly. And we need to unite the presumably United States of America. Yes.
Yes.
Could you explain the difference between Sunni and Shia?
Yes.
Because I read that there are great differences, but I don't understand.
Yes, Sunni are those who follow the Sunnah, and Shiites are those who follow the Shiites.
Thank you.
So, as I said in the beginning, terminology makes a lot of the heart of our discussions, because any term we use, it has a background. As I explained the term Islam, for example, it does have a linguistic background and it does have a solid meaning. So when we use the word Sunni, what is Sunni? Shiite, what is Shiite? Shiite is an Arabic word, and in English it means the supporters of. That's what Shiites are. They are the supporters of the fourth caliph of the Prophet. Does this mean that the Sunnis do not support him? No, the Sunnis also believe that. So the Sunni and the Shiites both believe that Ali ibn Abi Talib, the fourth successor of the Prophet, was the most legitimate caliph and successor after the Prophet. Okay? But at the time that political choice was on the table, people had a strong governor in Syria, the area called Syria today, Syria, Jordan, this. That area of northern Arabia was governed by a very strong, powerful ruler whose relatives were, one of the relatives was the third caliph, and he was assassinated by a group of mob. So this strong governor told the fourth successor of the Prophet, I will give you the pledge of obedience and commitment and elect you as a leader if you could arrest those people who committed those crimes. The people who committed the crimes are gangs that came from all over Arabia, descended on Medina, conspired to kill the third caliph for creating a turmoil in the community. So you could see this is basically a political struggle or strife, if you will, that happened between the community, leadership, and followers that should not have lasted that long into the future. The reason it did is because when people entrench in political positions, they go to their religion to find justifications. This is what I was talking about when you conflate a political desire with religious justification, or a religious justification on political grounds. People need to not use Allah's word to justify their own will. We should submit to His will and to His word and make His word the guide for our life. So the Sunnis continued to support the fourth caliph until he was killed, and that strong governor in Syria became his successor because he got a lot of support, a lot of power, and the community started to come into that direction of dynasties instead of the Islamic rule that didn't recognize family inheritance of ruling. Islam never recognized that I am the ruler, my child has to be the successor. Never. Islam recognizes the will of the people to select or elect and then pledge their commitment to the leader they elect. Similar to what happens in a democracy. Okay? Except that there is a filter in the Muslim community that they prefer that a person is chosen by elected groups of the community, which is similar to a parliamentary type of system, whereby you elect from this community someone, from this community someone. They constitute something like a parliament, and this parliament will agree to one or two people, and preferably one. Then this one will be given their pledge. Then the communities who elected them will pledge support also for one and the same leader. So it is a structured type of system that allows the voices of the masses to count, but the filter is supposed to be the most educated people, so that it is not the choice of the mobs or the uneducated, and everybody's opinion and head are one and the same. We know that we have some people who are more educated and more fluent in community issues than others. Those activists and members who are leading from the grassroots up their community to do what is right, those are the ones that people tend to elect. People who serve their purpose, people who serve their cause, not serve themselves. And there is no point in having somebody be the life term on end, because that deprives the community from changing him if they want. Islam provides that the people who appoint or elect can also remove somebody from office by public vote if the assembly would agree. So the Sunni and Shiite is a political turmoil that ended up being turned into religious justifications on both sides, and then it turns into what we see today of unfortunate massacres. What's going on in Iraq or in Syria is quite unfortunate, but again, Iraq was living as one community for centuries until 2003. You know what happened in 2003. I don't need to elaborate. Did this answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other question?
Yes.
Some people asking me if you're a Muslim, what does Allah think about the violence and killing that's happening right now around the world, including Muslim killing Muslim, everybody killing everybody? So what's Allah says or think about those things, or anything in Islam encourage people to kill each other, or is it wrong or right? And how come this guy he claimed says Allahu Akbar and this guy says Allah, but both of them kill each other? Who's right and who's wrong? I don't understand.
It is true that Allahu Akbar, but they are both wrong.
Yeah.
Allahu Akbar means Allah is greater. That's what it means, so that nobody will get scared. Well, basically, people rarely fight over principles. People mostly fight over interest, possessiveness, land grab, or control, or money, or oil, or things like this. You look all throughout history, very rarely people fought because of religion. Muslims are instructed clearly in the Quran not to fight anyone because of their faith, period. There is no allowance. It's prohibited in Islam to kill somebody because of what they believe in. The only permission that Allah gives a Muslim to fight is not to fight, but to fight back. Meaning, if you are attacked as a nation, let us say somebody is attacking Washington right now, would we be sitting? Would not be sitting. We'll have to push back, right? So if any power starts to attack US where we live, it is incumbent on us to defend our community. That's the same for Muslims. Muslims should never fight on flimsy reasons. Even in self-defense, the Quran says, do not go overboard. Like if somebody throws an egg over your car, please don't pick your gun and shoot him. It's much simpler than that. Okay? So don't go overboard. وَإِنْ عَاقَبْتُمْ فَعَاقِبُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا عُوقِبْتُمْ بِهِ. If you fight back, push as much back, push until you stop the aggression. Minimum needed force to stop the aggression. That's what Islam calls for. Okay? Yes.
I just had a question. There's a lot of hypocrisies in a lot of different religions, and I am married to a Muslim. I lived in a Muslim country for 8 years, but I'm not Muslim myself. I was always told that in maybe a passage in the Quran that the earth is found beneath the foot of the mother. Is there a passage that says this?
There is no passage, but this is a proverb that spread among the Muslim community, that the earth is under the feet of the mother.
Yes.
Yes.
So I heard that a lot. But yet I feel like there's still, even though I lived in a country in North Africa, where it's a little more progressive perhaps, there's still a lot of discrimination against women.
Yes.
And I find that more in Muslim countries than non-Muslim countries. And
Yes.
why is that?
Basically, I will tell you this. Up until the 1960s, America, all of America believed that abortion is an abomination. Up until the 80s, America believed that homosexuality is an abomination. Even you could not say the word without saying, excuse me. Right? What's going on? What's going on is we are drifting down the line away from the basics that made this country stand on a strong foundation. The same thing happened in Muslim countries. When people drift away from their faith, what are they left with? They are left with their own whims and desires. So, yes, the label is a Muslim country, but is it an Islamic country? The label is here that we are a Christian nation, right? But what is the reality? The reality is different. So the reality is going different in every religious community because we are running away from our teachings. We are running away from our scriptures, not just today, not just in the past 50 years, but we have been running away for centuries. So this is the reason. So when you run away from your own faith, your own tradition, you do not learn it, you do not care to learn it, let alone to care to practice it. So let me tell you something that the Quran gave to women that they didn't have before. Allah included women in inheritance when women in those days, up even until 1,000 years after, were not recognized as people who are equal to men or even people with a spirit. France recognized that women have spirit recently, maybe 200 years ago. I'm talking about the most liberal country in Europe, right? So some communities will take time to come to grips with living by the guidance of God or living by trial and error until they discover they cannot continue anymore. We are living by trial and error on social issues here in America, right? And if you let every religious leader in America get together from all religions, they can set the moral compass of America back to where it should be. But the leadership is for politicians, not for the church or the mosque or the synagogue. So the reason people are acting against the teachings of Islam is because they are not learned about Islam and they do not want to learn about Islam, the vast majority of them. Okay? I hope this answers your question. Let me add something because I promised to do it, but I forgot. The Quran says, he who does any righteous deed, whether a male or female, we will let them lead a good life. A male or female will be rewarded equally in front of Allah. In front of the law, the punishment for an adulterer or adulteress are one and the same. So before the law, men and women are the same. Okay? Before the society, they are the same. A woman could go to court, file for divorce, and get the divorce. A man could do the same. So they are equal in every aspect, but the leadership in the institution of the family is given to the one who has the responsibility to finance, maintain, and develop the family. Okay? Which means the woman is a co-equal and co-partner in the family in terms that a man should not make a decision that affects her without consulting with her. Okay? And if he does, he will be in violation of the law. Islam, the Quran says that men have a share of what they earn, and women have a share of what they earn. Financial independence of the women has been established from day one. Women were themselves inherited. As you inherit money and wealth, a woman used to be inherited in Arabia before Islam, and they used to be sold for slaves. Islam says there is no such a thing. So it stopped all prostitution, all institutions that degraded women and gave the woman the status of a queen in her house and a partner in her own family, a partner with the man. So the only thing they have difference is if they disagree on a decision that is critical for the family, then she will have the first crack at the decision making by convincing her husband to go her way. And he has to listen, and he has to factor her opinion in his decision. But if she could not convince her husband, then he is left with nothing but to go with his own opinion. That's normal. In every company, in every institution, you have to have a final say by someone in the institution. The woman, as the sister said in the beginning, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet the status of women in the family. So a man came to the Prophet and asked him, who deserves the best of my companionship? He said, your mother. Then he said, who's next? He said, your mother. Then he said, who's next? He said, your mother. Then the man said, and who's next? He said, then your father. This is the status of women in Islam. Women in Islam are our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, and as Muslims, we understand that man as a whole, we are told in the Quran, that man is created in weakness. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. We all are weak. There is so much distance you could see at, right? There is so much you could hear between frequencies, right? There is so much height you could jump to. So we are limited. Faculties, capacities are limited, right? As humans, all of us. But then Allah says, women are weaker than men. He says that his mother bore him in weakness upon weakness. The weakness of being a human, and then the weakness of being a mother carrying a baby. To point to us that we should be so merciful, so compassionate to our mothers and to our sisters and to everybody that has a responsibility that a man could never do. So you men sitting down here understand, you could never be the mother, even if you want to.
Yes, please. Additional questions?
Yes.
In your opening, you mentioned the word jihad and how the media seems to misuse that word. So I just wanted to kind of get some clarification on what the word really originally means.
Yeah, this is one of the most misunderstood and misused and abused term both by Muslims and non-Muslims. I hope this is clear. So I gave an example and I said, if some power is attacking Washington, what should we all do?
Repel that attack.
Defend. That is jihad. But that's only one form of jihad. Jihad in Arabic means to put an effort, to exert some effort. So if you are studying as a student and you're putting a lot of effort to get your degree and so on, that is called jihad in the path of knowledge. Okay? So jihad from juhd, which means effort. Whatever effort you put in a positive direction, either to learn something or to develop something or to protect something you need to protect, this is all regarded as jihad, which is exerting the maximum effort to attain desirable goals.
It's like a teacher when they don't have a job.
It's like a teacher, like a doctor, like a fireman, like a policeman. We all put certain efforts to achieve the goals of our assignments, right? That is jihad. So jihad is not limited to warfare. But if you want to talk about jihad in the context of fighting, it is only in defense of your community, yourself, your family. Yes.
Do you think the word struggle is a good synonym for?
Struggle is only limited to fighting, but striving would be a better word that I would, yes. To strive in the path of something that is good. Okay?
What's the greatest jihad? Like the greatest?
The greatest jihad is the effort we put against our own self-desires. To fight our self-desires, to control ourselves, not to control each other. I always tell people who come for counseling, if you want to control your spouse, try controlling yourself first. Because by controlling yourself, you control your environment. If a policeman comes and attacks me and, slanders me or anything like this, and I stay quiet and I stay in self-control and I show the respect that he deserves to get from me as a citizen, I think his tone will change. Wouldn't he?
We would never attack you.
So this is great conversation. Minority group.
So let me take a chance to talk about the infidel.
Well, the idea. So
Well, Sheikh, let me ask you a question. There is, I'll tell you.
Let me talk about the infidel first.
Can I ask the question about the infidel, if you don't mind?
Yes.
The question that I see a lot is that there's a verse in the Quran that says, kill the infidel wherever you find them, number one. Number two, it says that basically anyone who doesn't follow Islam is an infidel, and therefore you can, basically kill people that you don't agree with in terms of religion, even though you just said that Islam doesn't accept that. But that's a verse. How do you explain that verse? Because that's taken out of context all the time.
Well, the verse that he is citing is verse number 191 in Surah number 2. Before it comes the verse number 90, right?
Yes.
So the verse number 90 says, and fight in the path of Allah only those who fight you, and never commit aggression. I think this is clear. It follows saying, for Allah does not like the aggressors. That's still verse 190, not 91, right? Verse 91 says, and kill them wherever you find them. Verse 91 is talking about what? Those of verse 190 who have committed aggression against you, and you are pushing back against their aggression, right? And kill them wherever you find them, right? What else does it say, Ashraf? Follow. It says, and kick them out from wherever they kicked you out. But people in the media would love to quote, kill them wherever you may find them, because it makes special audience aroused, right? It creates deep division and deep misunderstanding. The reason I'm citing the ayat by verse number and surah number 2, verse 190 and 191, you could read them for yourself. I can ask anyone to open a copy and read it for you. Okay.
So it has a context.
It does. See, Muslims were persecuted in Mecca for 13 long years. All throughout, Allah told the Muslims, keep your hands to yourself. Which means what? Keep your hands to yourself. Right? After 13 years, they go to Medina. They migrate to Medina. Some of them before the 13 years are over, and some of them went at the end of the 13 years. Okay? So they go to Medina, which is about 400 kilometers away. Still, the pagan idol worshippers of Mecca, they go and parade their power around the Medina by way of threatening this, very fragile community in the early formation. So Allah told the Muslims then, now you have a land and they are coming all the way after you. They have taken your money, they have killed your children, they have killed your fathers and your mothers. Now you are being given the permission to fight back. I think this is logical. This is any community would do that. You don't lay down for people to run you over. You push back.
Islam is not pacifist.
So the idea that because Muslims believe in what the West believes, which is to defend ourselves, right? But we are guided with principles. If somebody attacks you, you attack them in kind. You don't go in excess. You don't go overboard. That is restraint. In today's world, if some country attacks another country and the other country who has been attacked has more power, they go out of their way to decimate the other community. Islam says no, you can't. Even Muslim scholars cannot figure out until today whether nuclear bombs are legitimate weapons of war or not, because they are fully indiscriminate. And in Islam, it's prohibited to be indiscriminate even in the battlefield. You have to discriminate. It goes further. Inside the battlefield, Muslims are told, and this is in chapter 6. It says, chapter 7, I think. chapter 7, it says, in the battlefield, if your enemies declare that they want peace, they want to stop the war, you incline towards peace. Following the next verse, it says, and if they want to deceive you, God is enough for you. So Allah is telling us Muslims, poor us, He's telling us, if you trust Allah to protect you, accept even a deceptive proposal for peace in the battlefield. This is how aggressive Muslims are. And by the way, with all of this reputation that we have, Muslims constitute 90% of total world refugees. Muslim countries have been under the gun for over 2 centuries, either by direct occupation and colonialization or indirect colonialization and exploitation. With all the hoopla that the West is making about Islam is this, Islam is that, and Mike Flynn is saying that we have to decimate them. And what is this hysteria about? We've not initiated World War I. We've not initiated World War II. We did not bomb Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We did not. But this hysteria is not about justice. It is about injecting fear so that the West never looks positively at Islam or Muslims. And it comes from certain religious quarters and certain political manipulators who want to use faith and religion to bid one against the other. I hope that America would wake up before it's too late. Yes.
I have a question. I would just like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate your coming. We know that we couldn't have had this day without you being here. And we hope that everyone will take this as only your first visit. Don't make it your last. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else have something?
Yes, she has a question.
Yes, please.
You.
I was just wondering how it must feel as a believer of Islam and the way it's meant to be followed, how it would feel living here in America with the media and the sensationalism of the religion and the manipulation of the religion.
Yes.
And how or what can be done to change that. Well, I mean, this is a start, but to change that sort of outlook in those highly broadcast entertainment.
In reality, it feels very wonderful. Yes. Because we know this in our real life. Unless you are challenged, you never put your best and maximum potential into the task. So we look at this as a challenge, and we're opening our mosques and our homes and our hearts to our neighbors, hoping that they will understand and they will stand for the truth. This is the basic ethics of being an American, that we stand for justice and we stand for truth. So our challenge is to face up to this avalanche or avalanches of attacks and misinformation and disinformation. We know that we are in a war that we did not call on ourselves. And we are in a war that is asymmetrical, because people own the media, people own the political offices, and we are just a fringe, less than 1%. But we know that the power of Allah and the power of truth is great in the American heart, and this power one day will prevail.
Yes. Yeah, I know maybe you can maybe more articulately say it, but I know in the Quran there are a few points in which it talks about nations, and there have been signs of nations that destroyed themselves by their own self-destructive behavior. And one of the verses of the Quran talks about, if only you would look at the signs of the nations before that I have destroyed.
Yes.
You would take self-corrective measures. And I feel like the United States right now is at that point. We have a great nation, but we're on the verge of destroying ourselves. And there's all kinds of warnings. We've got to wake up and fix things before we
I believe that
fall like a house of cards.
people of goodwill, people of faith and ethics should really get together and overlook their ideological and even belief differences and focus on what the Quran says. The Quran says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, and cooperate in matters of righteousness and goodness, and do not cooperate in matters of evil and wickedness. To build, you have to show your best. Like if we are all building a house, we are all going to live in it. Would it be honest for anyone to bring the worst material? It wouldn't. So people who want to build a better America, they should bring the best of America, put it on the table, not the worst of America. This is what we should be talking about. That the society that we live in is diseased with divisiveness.
In about 2 minutes, we will be having the call to prayer for the third prayer of the day, which is the afternoon prayer. If you look at the program booklet that you have, it is on the 4th page. It says Adhan, call to prayer. So as you hear the call to prayer, you can actually see the translation of that call to prayer in the program booklet. The call to prayer for the third prayer of the day, the afternoon prayer, will be at 4:49 p.m. And then it will be followed by the actual prayer, which will happen at 5:10, in the prayer hall. If you'd like to observe that, please see one of the volunteers or guides so they can show you the way to the prayer halls.
So I was saying that what we need to do as a society is to make a stand that should be permanent. America needs badly a leadership that leads by the ethics of our local community. The school community, the neighborhood community, the firefighters, the policemen, the teachers, the doctors, the engineers, the workers, the lay people, the cab drivers. We need all to lead the leaders so that our ethics decide what goes on, not their political aims and their own direction. We need the country not to be misled. We need it to be led by those people that we elect, but only when they work according to what we believe is a resemblance and presentation of our own ethics as a society. America used to be the society of giving all over the world. Now it is a society that sends bombs everywhere. I think that's not a good reputation. It's not. America was so much loved that one day we discovered all of a sudden we are the beacon of the world. Everybody wants to come here, even until today, right? But does this mean that what we are doing in the world really represents America? We need to put the leash on leaders who are working on divisiveness, warmongering, hatred, and bigotry. Those could not represent the values of America. Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
I think we all here today so we could learn and seek knowledge and seek education about if anything that happened. That's all I wanted to say.
Allah.
And we continue to be here for you. If at any time you come across any issue or anything, call on us and we will be your brother and your sisters and will work with you whatever the issue is. This is what makes a community a community. So let us treat each other for the family we are and try to not create more anxiety in our communities. We need to fight against fear and promote faith, not fear. Thank you very much for coming. So I have to ask your excuse. I have to get ready for the prayer, but I will leave you with Ashraf, inshallah.